We are going positively nuts on this special WADR episode with Master Brander Donnie Deutsch here by my side. The political world spends a lot of time talking about the public image of presidential candidates. But after Donald Trump's campaign changes this week, many eyes are now cast on the cast of characters advising the Republican nominee. We're going to talk about a few of them to start off tonight, and we're going to begin with the newest addition, now the CEO of Team Trump, former Breitbart executive Steve Bannon. Before yesterday, Bannon was not all that well known. Now there are profiles galore about his eclectic resume and his political repertoire. Over the past 24 hours, the New York Times has called Bannon both a conservative media provocateur and also, quote, the single most influential figure in the Trump campaign. I'm not sure that's true. Other news organizations have dubbed him a combative truth believer in the Trump product, a street fighter, and a media bomb thrower. So far, Bannon hasn't done much to define himself since being added to the team. In fact, as best we can tell, the only interview he's done since Trump's announcement is a brief talk with our Bloomberg colleague Josh Green, in which Bannon suggested he can indeed work with the Republican Party. So, Donnie, how is the Bannon brand faring so far, and what's its impact right now on Trump?
Everything clicked for me on this, and I want to talk about the Trump-Bannon brand.
Yeah.
It's been no secret that I have said all along, and I'm talking about Trump, the man, not the candidate. This guy doesn't want to be president. He wants to run. He never expected himself to be here. He also doesn't want to lose. And I couldn't figure out, okay, what's he going to do here? He is literally going into the revolution business, literally. What he's going to do, he's doubling down, obviously. We know it's going to be the anti-establishment versus the establishment, both Republicans and Democrats. Not enough to win an election. It just isn't. The math doesn't add up. But coming out of the election, now if he's a revolutionary, not a loser, but, you know, I've got 40 million people following me, and I don't care. This is just the beginning. I didn't lose. And it's a media, political, technology empire with basically Bannon as the media guy and Trump as the salesman. This is a new political party. It's a new movement. He wins even if he loses. It just got very clear to me.
That thematic is there. I think Bannon probably should not have let himself be so defined by others. The guy's got an impressive resume. He's responsible for what goes on Breitbart. He has been since he took over. And there's a lot of stuff on there that has defined him as negative, slashing, niche, dark. The guy also has a record of accomplishment as a businessman, and I haven't found any clear answer in what I've read and in my own reporting about what exactly he's going to do. Is he in charge of message? Is he in charge of building some future network? Is he managing the campaign as a business guy? I got no idea, but I can tell you, the press right now, the filter they're putting on Bannon is the one they want to, a lot of the press wants to put on Trump, which is he's given up. He's just going to go dark and negative and populist and nativist. I don't think that's what they're doing from talking to people in the campaign, but that's the impression. So I think right now, the Bannon brand is infecting the Trump brand in a negative way.
The world is changing. There will be a new political media party business empire coming out of this, representing those 30 or 40 million people that Trump has hit. Okay, the other Trump staffer everyone is talking about is new campaign manager Kellyanne Conway. You've seen her on this show, who since her promotion has announced that she's gotten, since her promotion was announced, has gotten glowing reviews from the far-right grassroots to the establishmentarian for, go back to that, establishmentarians.
Establishmentarians.
Anti-disestablishmentarian.
Yeah.
Okay. For instance, the president of the pro-life group, Susan B. Anthony, List said, quote, "No one is better at understanding what real people are thinking." And the Wall Street Journal editorial board glowingly wrote, "Ms. Conway is one of the best people in politics, a sincere conservative with a talent finding for language to connect with viewers who aren't policy wonks or political addicts." This morning on CNN, Conway said she has been humbled by the incoming praise, and then, as good campaign managers do, she directed the good vibes towards her boss.
I'm not a huge identity politics fan, Allison, but it was pointed out to me, I didn't know this, that I'm the first female Republican presidential campaign manager. I simply didn't know that, nor did Donald Trump ever mention it to me. No one at Trump Tower said it to me, and you know why? Because it's not why I was promoted. Donald Trump promoted me, and I think that speaks very well of him. He's got women in his Trump Corporation for many years, promoting them, and I feel like advancing in their careers, and I feel like I'm the latest example of that for Donald Trump.
Okay, I promise I'm going to read this right. In the same interview, Conway also auditioned the careful and at times almost contradictory balancing act that she's likely to attempt in the days ahead, trying to find that sweet spot between letting Trump be Trump and keep his message on track.
What we would like to do is get him to continue to give speeches like the two we heard this week.
Teleprompter-based.
Teleprompter-based. And when he delivers a speech in his own words, in his own delivery system, then people can actually focus on the content. I think we're going to sharpen the message, and we're going to make sure Donald Trump is comfortable about being in his own skin, that he doesn't lose that authenticity. Voters know if you're comfortable in your own skin. And let him be him in this sense. If he wants to deliver a speech, if he wants to go to a rally, if he wants to connect with the crowd in a way that's very spontaneous, that's wonderful. And that's how he got here. But at the same time, we have some really serious, pressing problems in this country. He's going to give these policy speeches, and I'm thrilled that we've gotten so much coverage this week just on the first two speeches. You'll see more of those. Next week is Immigration Week, followed by Education Week, and we're really excited about that.
Mark, same question for you. How's the Kellyanne Conway brand doing, and more importantly, how does it affect Trump?
Opposite of what I thought about Bannon. I think Kellyanne has been in politics for a long time. She has always bridged between the establishmentarians and the grassroots. She's doing it right now. She's the first woman to have the title campaign manager for a Republican. Trump trusts her and respects her, and she's been in other presidential campaigns. The knock against her that I'm hearing from some people in the establishment is, well, she never won a presidential campaign. Not very many people have, but she has great relationships and Trump's trust. I think her brand is thriving right now, and it's helping Trump a lot.
Yeah, her brand has been thriving throughout this campaign, and obviously very, very hot now. Look, Trump likes her, and powerful alpha males like Trump very often only listen to women. And it's no surprise that probably personally listens to more than anybody else is his daughter.
Right.
And he also likes people of the same temperament. You know, it's a word that's taken him down a lot. But if you look at the people now who are rising to the top, it's the street fighters, very smart, very tough, not mamby-pamby people. She fits that bill. I still find it interesting that we're spending so much time on who his people are 84 days from the campaign versus him. That really says something about what's going on.
Well, it's a new team, and he needs help because he is an amateur.
Well,
I don't mean that in a negative way. Never run for anything.
That's pretty negative.
All right, Donald Trump, well, I just mean he's never run for anything. Donald Trump's staffing shuffle has been viewed in some quarters as a slight to the current campaign chairman, Paul Manafort. One narrative is out there that he's been sidelined by Trump, in part for trying to control the candidate too much. Eliana Johnson, the Washington editor of National Review, in fact, depicted Manafort as basically having been ousted. The campaign, though, is pushing back hard, though, on any suggestion that his power has been diminished, let alone being sidelined or ousted. Manafort and the campaign are still dealing with a constant IV drip of news stories about his past business ties to Russia and pro-Russia figures in Ukraine. NBC News added a story to that drip today, reporting that in 2008, Manafort's firm was involved in dealings with a Ukrainian oligarch with organized crime connections. NBC also is reporting Manafort did business with a Russian billionaire who also allegedly had ties to organized crime. Manafort says there's nothing improper about any of his work in these cases. He and the campaign are said to expect, though, more of these stories to come. So, Donnie, beyond these stories about Manafort's business dealings, how is the Manafort brand doing, and how is that impacting Trump?
Obviously, the brand's not doing well, and I agree that we're not going to see him very much in the next few weeks. So, bringing my CEO or my business CEO experience, once new people come in, but the guy who is still in charge is in charge, he's never in charge. We know that. And this whole Russian thing, you know, particularly now, the BBC is reporting today that there are 40,000 troops, Russian troops assembling on the Crimea, Ukraine border. You just don't want that guy around. You just don't want that guy around. And he's been the guy that's trying to get Trump to not be Trump. And we know, just if nothing else emotionally and certainly politically, that's not working. So for all of the above, I think he will be pretty much gone in a couple of weeks.
These stories are a problem because Trump has been so close to Putin rhetorically. Otherwise, these would get very little attention. I'm not sure that I don't think you're right. The Clinton campaign has like 10 senior people dealing with all the stuff you need to deal with. Between Jared Kushner and Kellyanne Conway, who will be on the plane a lot, we're told. Bannon, I don't know what he's going to do. There's a lot of work left for Paul Manafort to do. There's a lot to manage. There's a lot of the portfolio, big budget decisions, big political decisions, putting the coalitions together. So obviously the work's being divided up now. But every indication I have is he's still got a big portfolio.
But you're comparing the Clinton campaign, which is a professionally run campaign and is really an organization. Trump ran a mom-and-pop business. He's running a mom-and-pop campaign. He is a people gut person. The 2 or 3 people he trusts most, everything else is almost irrelevant. So what you're saying is logical, given the way this candidate has run his business and run his campaign. I don't see a place for Manafort.
So we know that Bannon has any aptitude for this. There's a big place for him, I think. When we come back, Donald Trump is about to roll out his first general election TV spots. We're going to talk about where, when, and what after these words from our sponsors. Since the national conventions, Hillary Clinton's campaign has spent $22 million in unanswered TV ads dollars. That's all about to change. Donald Trump is rolling out his first general election spots. He has reserved, we learned today, $3.9 million in 4 states, Ohio, North Carolina, Florida, and Pennsylvania, starting tomorrow, running through the end of August. That's likely to become a bigger number, including, we assume, some ad buys on cable. Just for comparison, though, the Clinton campaign is slated to spend $17 million over that same period of time. We don't know yet what the Trump ads are going to look like. As of last night, we were hearing Trump and his team were looking at several different options still regarding the content of the ads. Before we talk, though, about what those spots might look like, let's peek at some of the spots that are currently airing for the presidential race, starting with the Democrats and their many anti-Trump messages.
When I saw Donald Trump attack another Gold Star mother, I felt such a sense of outrage.
What Donald Trump said about our members of the military being captured is a disgrace.
You know, you could see there was blood coming out of her eyes, blood coming out of her wherever.
You have to ask yourself, do I want a person of that temperament control the nuclear codes? And as of now, I'd have to say no.
Ties are rated to China.
How do we make the economy work for everyone? Hillary Clinton's plan starts here.
Now here are some of the Clinton ads that are already on the airwaves.
She's one of the wealthiest women in politics.
We came out of the White House not only dead broke, but in debt.
Misogynistic regimes, Wall Street insiders, corrupt dictators. They all had one thing in common. Their check cleared.
I never told anybody to lie.
That's all I can say.
She doesn't believe in your right to keep a gun at home for self-defense.
I don't think there's any way to legislate against outsourcing. I think that's, just a dead end.
An out-of-touch hypocrite. She'd leave you defenseless.
I don't know how it works digitally at all. I do.
So, Di, the pro-Trump groups are running those kind of anti-Clinton messages. What do you think Trump will or should go with now when he goes on the air?
I think we're going to see it go down so nasty. First of all, you're never going to see Donald Trump in an ad, other than saying, I approve this ad. His ads are going to frame Hillary, and I think they're going to bring Bill into it a lot, as not only untrustworthy, but a crook and part of this establishment that is Los Angeles and New York and the media and politicians. And his whole speech yesterday is going to personify, but it's going to be very nasty and conspiracy type. It's going to, the problem he's had so far is all the discussion has been on Trump. He needs to do, even if they go extreme in the ads, and even if they're outright lying in the ads, and even if they're coming up with this, Breitbart type stuff, what it will do, though, is shift the campaign discussion back to Hillary. So I think we're going to see a very nasty kind of interpretation of what we've seen at a level we've never seen before.
What about using him in spots, even if it's with some negative, some positive? What about showing him being optimistic at rallies?
It's not going to win at this point. By the way, he gets his Donald Trump, pro-Donald Trump, with all the media coverage he gets, with all the rallies. That's the one place where he goes, I got these big crowds. That does not the crowds, but the media coverage gets for it. You will not see anything. They're going to now make this a referendum on Hillary Clinton, because to date, it's been on Donald Trump, and whoever makes it a referendum on the other one wins the selection.
So it sounds like you don't think he's going to run any bio spots. Is that what
I do not think we're going to see Donald Trump hugging babies and walking factories.
What about telling the story of his business career?
It's not going to win the election.
All negative.
The only way, because once again, as you saw, and we'll talk about the earlier ads, you're scaring the bejesus out of people with Donald Trump and the nuclear codes. So you got to come out with a pretty ugly alternative to that, to get people off of the fear of that.
And if you look at the specifics, you think they're going to do emails, they're going to do Whitewater, they're going to do...
all of the above. Emails, Whitewater, her health, Bill Clinton's philandering, Bill Clinton's really...
in ads.
Nasty, yeah. You're going to see, we can't take this in this country anymore.
All right, we shall see. We'll know soon. Up next, with all this focus on Trump, we're going to take a look at some of the overlooked Hillary Clinton stories from this week with two beat reporters when we come back.
With eyes on the potential turbulence within Team Trump this week, his rival Hillary Clinton flew a bit under the radar. Here to talk to us now about what we may have missed in Clinton world is MSNBC political. I cannot speak today.
No,
I don't know what's going on.
It's been a parent since the episode started.
I got to stop drinking before the show, okay?
Come on.
Is MSNBC political correspondent Casey Hunt and our very own Jennifer Epstein, who covers Clinton for Bloomberg Politics. Jennifer, let me start with you. Yeah, there should have been a lot more talk about Clinton, and it's interesting the kind of her health conspiracy theory that Trump people putting out. She fired back hard. Were you surprised they came back so hard at that?
You know, Clinton campaign waited a couple of days. This had really been percolating a lot last week. It was on Sean Hannity's show. Trump has kind of talked about it a few times. And kind of what the Clinton campaign tried to do was to let the media ecosystem respond to it naturally, to let Brian Stelter weigh in against Sean Hannity, to let fact checkers do their debunking. And then finally, they kind of swooped in. They released a statement from Communications Director Jen Palmieri. They released a statement from Secretary Clinton's doctor. They're trying to change what should have been something where they were on the defensive into the offensive. One aide compared it to how President Obama handled the birth certificate issue. Obviously, that was hanging over his head for a long time. I don't think that these health issues go away. Katrina Pearson is bringing them up again today on TV and kind of speculating more.
Because she always makes a lot of sense. Mark and I were talking about yesterday. We actually thought it was smart. It usually pulls a story further, but it didn't. Okay, also, the other thing that could have been big news today, as far as the FBI interview notes going up to the Hill, obviously, we're surprised there haven't been any leaks yet. You surprised there hasn't been more on that?
Yeah, you know, I think we assume that when something gets to the Hill and it gets to Hill Republicans, that it will leak pretty quickly. One thing that Chuck Grassley noted in a statement last night was that there is a little bit of classified information mixed in with mostly non-classified information, which means that a very limited number of people on the congressional staff can actually go through and read those notes, and that is, I think, slowing down the whole process. And I think the Clinton campaign's okay with that because they don't want these selective leaks that end up making the story look worse, and they think that the entirety of the notes will make it look.
I want to get to your overlooked stuff, but talk about those two things, the healthcare response and the FBI notes up on the Hill.
Well, one thing about the healthcare response I think is interesting is that they clearly decided that they needed to play defense here, right? Which they haven't on a lot of the things that have come up before, things Trump has raised, you know, on the stump. He has talked about Bill Clinton, sex scandals, the 90s. They've essentially said, okay, we're going to be totally hands-off about this. They clearly have made the calculation that that's not how to handle this. I'm interested in, like, learning more about, you know, why that is, why this one seems like potentially a bigger threat. And then on the emails, the one thing I will say is this is really difficult to understand, I think, if you are the average voter, right? You're down in these weeds with Jason Chaffetz trying to figure out what's the difference between an email header that says classified, what's the little C, 3 emails. For the most part, exactly. And it seems to me that this is, the goal here is to essentially continue to motivate Republican-based voters, right, who are ready to believe Republicans who say that this should be a problem for her.
So State Department acknowledged today what was obvious, which was there was linkage between the release of the Americans held in Iran and this $400 million.
Geez, surprising.
There's more stories.
I, for one, was shocked.
More stories about Russia and Syria.
Yeah.
Where do you see the sort of overlook there on her foreign policy record and credentials?
Well, one thing that Trump has been handing to Hillary Clinton here is the opportunity to talk constantly about him and never actually face questions about herself. She's been able essentially to skate, and she hasn't answered the latest iteration of this question. Obviously, the Wall Street Journal, had raised this earlier. She was asked some about it. She, for the most part, dismissed it. But she has been very supportive of this deal. And she hasn't been asked, hey, was this a good idea? Does this amount to ransom? She hasn't recently been asked whether this is a policy that the United States should be revisiting
Could come up at her next press conference.
Yeah. There hasn't really been an opportunity to ask her that question.
Yeah.
I love both your opinions on this. It's pretty clear by Trump's new team. They are obviously doubling down. They're going to go more negative than ever, more nasty than ever. I have a theory that where traditionally that works, it might backfire this time. I think the tone of the country, even though 68% say it's going in the wrong direction, you see what happened in both conventions. Now people responded to the more positive, and I think it could actually backfire. Thoughts?
My sense is there was a willingness when Donald Trump first won the nomination. There were a lot of people who were willing to step back and say, oh, this is interesting. I never maybe thought he was a plausible president, but suddenly he's won the nomination. Maybe I should take a look. And I think through the conventions, you've started to see that willingness dissipate a little bit. And I wonder if the sense of the electorate isn't going to move that way, that, you know what, this is just more playing politics as usual, and that we're over it in general. Now, of course, if it continues to drive her numbers down, and Mark, you've talked about this too, if they're able to help drive the president's numbers down, I think that could hurt. And I think some of it is how the Clinton campaign responds. I mean, Jen, what's your sense on the health question in particular? Do you have a sense of why they felt like that was something that was more of a threat?
I think that they just felt like it was something where they could kind of point out just kind of how ridiculous in their view what Trump and what his allies have been saying is. They think that it's just crazy to say that she is in bad health. That to say,
but if you compare it, as you said, they did to the birther thing. They were looking at the time in the Obama White House at public polls showing that a very high percentage of Americans questioned whether the president was born in the United States. This is a pretty research-oriented campaign. I've not asked them, but I bet you they had some indication
I think the health
that this
questions,
could be
I mean, I could just say anecdotally, I've had a lot of friends who don't really pay attention to politics asking me in the last couple of weeks, what's the deal with her health? And I've had to say
that's even if you only two people say it, that's enough for Joel Benenson's antenna to go up. This other story that's breaking today on McClatchy that a bunch of Clinton aides were supposed to take ethics training at the State Department and didn't. Is that a thing?
Well, I think that's a question. I mean, this is obviously one of these, I think, incremental stories that could potentially blow up into something bigger. It could also fade. But it's the kind of headline that, absent the noise of what's been going on with the Trump campaign, there's a lot more potential for it.
That's really what's happening, is that there's so much noise from the Trump campaign that it's overshadowing, it's drowning out all of these kind of questionable Clinton things.
Well, that's why I think the advertising is going to go really nice. We got to go. Look, I can't read or speak today. Can you read and take us out of that, please, because you're so good at that?
I'm going to thank myself, Casey Hunt. Thank you. I'm going to thank Jennifer Epstein. Thank you, Jennifer. Coming up.
You can praise our guests.
Haven't you? I mean, Donnie, come on.
But you got to tease. Coming up.
Coming up, a tale of two strategists after this.
See, that we need her.
Time to talk a little ye old strategery. We're joined now by John Burnett. He's a GOP strategist. He's an advisor to the New York Republican Party. And also here, Michael Feldman, a Democratic strategist who's formerly the senior advisor and traveling chief of staff to Vice President Al Gore. Just a little housekeeping. You're for Hillary Clinton.
I am.
Who are you for?
The Republican Party.
Yeah. Are you voting for Donald Trump?
Absolutely.
Yeah. He's from New York, you know that.
Absolutely. Definitely.
All right.
New Yorker.
So we like to do a little strategy swap here. Trump campaign, Kellyanne Conway acknowledged today, is behind. So you guys got some catching up to do. If you were giving advice to Donald Trump and your friend Kellyanne Conway, what would you tell him? What are the building blocks of a comeback?
Well, message discipline. It's been said often, but it can't be said enough. I mean, if Mr. Trump could focus on a couple of key messages and not do the Clinton campaign's job for them.
Which two messages?
Well, first of all, and this is not a specific message, Donnie, but it's a broader strategy. He needs to restore his credibility as an acceptable alternative in a change election year. I mean, at this point,
how do you do that? Yeah,
well,
obviously.
it's complicated, and he's worked hard to, and I don't think intentionally, but he has disqualified himself among strands of the general electorate. He needs to start winding that back. So, by the way, I thought the roundtable he did the other day, at least the optics of the roundtable and national security made sense. Giving policy speeches and sticking to a message on teleprompter or not, it's important that he show that he can be a leader and be a president. Because if he doesn't get that back, all the negative attacks, all the tough ads, he doesn't have enough of the electorate to come back and win the election.
All right, what should Joel Benenson and company be doing for Hillary Clinton right now?
I'd say ditto. When you look at Hillary Clinton, she's been dodging the press for a little bit under a year now. So that would actually feed into the growing sentiment that she's not trustworthy, that she's hiding something.
So, John, if she were your client and she said, John, I hate press conferences. I'm up 10 points. You'd say, go do some press conferences.
At least do one or two.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, they argue she came out and answered 4 questions.
The staged one that she did on Fox.
But John, you're in this business. You know that every day, we're down to day 84, every day that is about Trump on the news, she wins.
But she has to hedge.
Well, hedge or not, it's the right strategy. By the way, it's the right. If I was managing a campaign, I would keep her under wraps as much as possibly can. Make every day about Trump.
But you know how things can change very quickly.
I'm talking about right now.
Right?
Yeah.
So if she doesn't actually do something that's sort of like goodwill, put some goodwill in escrow, if you will, by at least doing one press conference before the debates, and generally see how the debates go.
Maybe on an August Friday.
There you go. Bury it, right?
I think there are some people around her who say to make the case to her. Just what you're saying. Get it
late on a Friday, or at least a Saturday afternoon.
You're saying a presser taking questions?
Yeah.
Oh, well, Donald Trump doing that?
What do you think?
Can I just add one thing?
At least 15 minutes.
Yeah. And I think it's true of both candidates. I'd spend an extra hour a day on debate prep. I think it's true for both strategies. Look, the debates are going to be the last real impact moment with a national audience, a chance to change the dynamic of the race. If I'm Secretary Clinton, I'm in there making sure I'm ready for any haymaker that's going to come her way. And if I'm Mr. Trump, I'm really studying up to try to at least.
Let me just question. Let me just reference this brilliant man's book, and we saw what happened with Sarah Palin. We all know that Donald Trump, there's so many questions you can ask him. He's just not going to have the answer. I'm not talking about the, tell me the year, Croatia was liberated. I'm talking basic 101. Yeah. Tell me the difference between a Sunni and a Shia. I mean. Yeah. How do you prepare that guy for that?
Well, first of all, look, he's not going to be able to compete with her on the debate stage on policy. And by the way, very few people can. I don't know many of her staff people that could keep up with Secretary Clinton on the details of public policy. But he's got to be able to deliver a message. I would pick 2 or 3 key messages that I try to draw a contrast on her and make sure that whatever the question is, I'm delivering that message.
A 90-minute debate, it does get granular.
I know.
He did a great job. Through all the Republican debates, pulling everybody to what he wanted to focus on. He needs to do the same thing.
Harder one-on-one, though, right?
Harder one-on-one.
Yeah. Well, actually, we might have three people in the race.
Maybe. You're right. They may.
So you never know.
The 2 vice presidential candidates are in, I think, as good shape as any I've seen in the sense. Both Clinton and Trump, I'm told, are really happy with their picks. They've worked out as well or better than they thought. And both these guys are out there doing lots of events, not really shackled in any way. Do you see them as canceling each other out? Is one of them helping the top of the ticket more at this point?
No, I mean, they're serving different roles. First of all, I actually think both of them made good picks.
Yes.
For different reasons. And both of them have one eye on potentially the future and the next cycle. And so the calculation for both of them is different. I would say for Senator Kaine in particular, His ability to support her, to deliver a message that's complementary to hers, has been crucially important. And for Governor Pence, it's been reassurance to some of the audiences that want to make sure that there's going to be, an adult in charge or somebody around who can help guide the ship of state if they get elected.
Right.
But they're very different things.
That is a strong conservative. I think that speaks to the base of the Republican Party and those that are far right, especially those that are in the Ben Carson, the Ted Cruz camp, to make sure that, you know what, we have a conservative that's in the White House.
Mark,
for those that have still question, whether, Trump has is more, to the middle or to the right.
Or to the alt-right.
And I think, as we continue to move along in the election process, Trump is proving himself to have more right-leaning views.
Mark, this is the first time in election as two candidates who coming into it have 100% unaided brand awareness. Neither of these guys can make a difference. Is that fair to say? I mean, they've both done a good job. They're good picks.
I think the way these guys have talked about it is right, which is they're both helping in big ways, as big as you can at the bottom of the ticket. And they're both getting a lot of great local coverage, which is important because you can only be in one state at a time. Are your candidates who are on the ballot in New York this year worried about the prospect of a blowout at the top of the ticket? Is that something people are talking about?
I think when you look at what happened in the primary, we had a lot of people come out. A lot of people are excited. In fact, Trump won every county except for one.
This one.
His own, right? But so the energy is very high. We don't really expect to win much in New York City, given the numbers. I think it's 7-to-1 ratio. But when you look at New York State, it's more 2.5, 3-to-1. So I think we're in good position.
You going to have a strong candidate for mayor of New York next year?
Absolutely.
Who's it going to be?
And governor.
Who's it going to be?
In due time. One race at a time.
Okay. Karl Rove, in his column in the Journal today, raised the prospect of a blowout for Hillary Clinton. Are you hearing Democrats more saying, hey, don't take anything for granted, races are going to be close in this country, or more people now thinking about the prospect of long coattails and maybe a Democratic rout?
I hear both.
You know a lot of people.
I do know a lot of people, but the reality is there are two conversations going on. I think justifiably people are concerned about turnout. They want to make sure that people stay focused until the very end of this race. People don't become complacent, because that will matter. You also hear talk of the expanding map. And when we hear states like Arizona and Georgia and
Missouri,
I mean, we haven't seen that in a long time. We haven't seen that in a very long time. And so I do think people are looking at the map and they're looking at the numbers in those states in a different way, just given where the race is running right now.
Okay, Michael Feldman, John Burnett, thank you, gentlemen, both.
Great.
When we come back, we're headed to the polls. Break down some of the latest in polling. And if you're watching us in Washington, D.C., you can now listen to us on the radio at Bloomberg 99.1 FM. We will be right back. polls. There are a lot of polls out there, and polls lead to a lot of questions. When we have questions about polls, we either get on a plane to Des Moines, Iowa, or we do the next best thing. We bring Des Moines, Iowa here to Gotham City. Joining us now in studio, Ann Seltzer, our pollster, who's going to answer two big questions that keep coming up this week as we look at our national poll that we just did, but other polls as well. The first thing I get asked about all the time, and I don't have great answers, but you do. Some polls now look at likely voters. Some look at registered voters. Some pollsters ask both within a given poll. Why not pick one and go with it?
Right. Well, to be perfectly honest, their pollsters have two different philosophies about how you decide what the electorate is going to look like. There are pollsters who say, I'll decide, and I will look at all the data. This many
Democrats, this many African Americans,
exactly.
This many men, this many women.
Based on everything we know, this many young people, everything we know before. So they don't want to do that until it's close to the election, which is that tends to be after Labor Day. So before that, so they have something to look at, they look at registered voters, so that they can look at time one, time two, time three, time four, and have a trend line that makes sense.
So keep the universe to registered voters for consistency through Labor Day,
and then you have like the shift change for taxis in New York in August, where they're switching to likely voters. Then there are pollsters like I am who say, let the voters tell me who's a likely voter. How can I predict this election in particular, really any election, because there's so many ways now that the electorate changes from cycle to cycle to cycle.
Barack Obama brings in more African Americans.
Right, exactly. Or young people, and they're better at turnout than the poll might predict.
Has anybody come out of a hole that Trump's in when you kind of layer in both the national and the battleground? Now, once we go back, some of these battleground states were not battleground states, but overall snapshot. Has anybody come back from it?
That's right. You know, we took a look from the beginning of polling to see what had been happening in election after election. You have some elections like Eisenhower, and he led in the polls from the beginning, and he led in the polls at the end. But there have been several that offered up surprises and twists and turns and changes of leads. So people have mostly been talking about Dukakis being behind by as much as 19 points, but in August, leading by 7 points. Of course, George H.W. Bush went on to beat him rather handily. But if you look back in time, you know, there was a time that Carter was leading Ford by a lot more. Before that, Ford had been leading Carter. That turned into be a very close race. So Ford was able to make up where he was in August by election time. That's 16 percentage points. Back to 1968, you had Hubert Humphrey at only 29 points, and that was the closest race up to until that point in time. So looking back in history, you can say anything can happen. You look at this race in particular, and with every day there being a new bit of news breaking that can change the poll, anything can happen.
And it's safe to say that while it is possible that Trump could come back, for leaving aside the conduct of his campaign, just looking at leads in the past, he can certainly narrow this contest.
He certainly could.
Coming all the way back may be a taller order than has typically been done.
People have come back by more points than he's trailing.
Right.
So to say that he's dug a hole that he can't get out of, I think is overstating the case.
Ann Seltzer here from Des Moines, explaining it all to us, rather than going to the Iowa State Fair. Your choice. Ann, thank you. And we'll be right back. Throughout this presidential campaign, supporters and critics alike have commented a lot about Donald Trump's word choices. Certainly, Trump speaks in a very distinctive sort of language. His is a vernacular of simple, often effective words and many, many expressions, pet expressions. You could call them idioms or tropes or filler phrases. We call them the Trump ABCs. For a long time, we've been listening to what Donald Trump says in public, and tonight we present what we believe is the definitive catalog of the Trump alphabet, naturally in alphabetical order.
Together, we accomplished what nobody thought was absolutely possible. Absolutely, absolutely proven to be. Absolutely a total lie. Absolutely. Absolutely so.
I know more about ISIS than the generals do, believe me.
Believe me, I'll make you very proud of those justices.
We can get them to pay for it, believe me.
I am the least racist person that you've ever met, believe me.
I never attacked him on his look, and believe me, there's plenty of subject matter right there.
They're taking it over big league, big league, big league.
Hillary wants to expand regulations, which she does big league.
Big league. Big and big league.
Total control. Bing, bing, bong, bong, bing, bing, bing. You know what that is, right?
She's married to Anthony Weiner. You know, the little bing, 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 bum, bum. Little mouth on him. Bing, 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 bing.
By the way, we will build a wall.
By the way.
And he's worked in North Carolina, by the way. By the way. And by the way.
Did he choke? Did this guy choke? He choked. I've watched people choke over the years. And once a choker, always a choker.
He's a choke artist.
He choked. I mean, it's pure and simple. Marco choked. That means he's going to choke. It was a total choke, and he just choked.
I'm not a choker.
We have crooked Hillary, Bob. Crooked Hillary Clinton.
Crooked may be more accurate, actually.
It's a crooked system. It's 100% crooked.
Nobody would be tougher on ISIS than Donald Trump.
Donald Trump.
Everybody is going to vote for Donald Trump.
Donald Trump.
Donald Trump.
Donald Trump. Donald Trump.
Donald Trump.
Donald Trump. Donald Trump. Donald Trump. Donald Trump. Donald Trump. Donald Trump.
Donald Trump.
They obviously got to the Pope, and they're telling him what a bad guy Donald Trump is. He doesn't know me.
He doesn't know me, never met me, doesn't know what I'm all about. She doesn't know me. She knows nothing about me.
They are really trying to stop me. Everybody knows it.
Everybody knows about me.
The New York Times, I call it the failing New York Times.
Failed. He failed horribly. They're friends of mine. Hillary's a great friend of mine. Her husband is a great friend of mine.
Good friend of mine.
Tom Brady is a great friend of mine.
Friend of mine.
A friend of mine?
Some are friends of mine.
Get him out of here. Get him out. Get him out of here.
Get him out of here. Get him out.
Yeah, get him out of here. Get him out.
I'd get them out of here. Go ahead, get him out.
You can get the baby out of here. We don't know where they come from, really. This could be the all-time great Trojan horse.
This could be the great Trojan horse.
The great Trojan horse.
I like people that weren't captured, okay? I hate to tell you.
I used to be total establishment. Hate to tell you. I hate to tell you, he came to Indiana.
I have a judge who is a hater of Donald Trump. A hater. He's a hater. A hater's
hater? I made a lot of money dealing against China. And I made a lot of money dealing against other countries. I made a lot of money. And I made a lot of money doing everything I did. I made a lot of money with The Apprentice. I made a lot of money in real estate. I made a lot of money, everything I did.
It's a total and complete joke.
Hillary Clinton is a joke. It's a total joke.
I think the guy is a total incompetent jerk.
A jerk named Krauthammer.
He looks like a jerk.
Nobody knows currency manipulation better than China.
Nobody knows. Nobody knows. Nobody knows. Nobody even knows who the people are. Nobody knows where they are. Nobody knows what they're doing with the money. Honestly, he cheated like a dog.
He choked like a dog.
He choked like a dog.
Marco's sweating like a dog. They were fired like dogs. They hate little Marco Rubio so much.
This little guy has lied so much.
Little Marco.
It's dead. It's gonna look.
The group of losers.
Losers. They're losers. They're just losers.
I'm millions of votes ahead. Millions.
These other companies, they go out and they spend millions of dollars looking for oil.
Millions and millions of jobs.
I have no relationship with Putin. I don't think I've ever met him. I never met him.
I never met him.
Honestly, I don't know David Duke. I don't believe I've ever met him.
This guy, Ricketts or something. I never met him.
And he was sweating so badly. I have never seen anything like it.
We've never seen anything like it. You've never seen anything like it? What he did with Ben Carson was terrible. I've never seen anything like that. I've never seen anything like that before.
I've never seen anything like it.
I'll win their vote like you've never seen before. It's like you've never seen.
Like you've never seen before.
Like you've never seen before.
Boy, oh boy.
Oh boy.
Oh boy. It always will be, okay?
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, that's enough.
A lot of people are saying that, and a lot of people are saying that bad things are happening out there.
The smart people would say that's a great thing.
People are saying,
I promise you, I will pay for the legal fees. I can promise you.
he's definitely over there. There's no question about it.
he certainly lives above his means. There's no question about that.
There's no question about it. There's no question about it.
We'll never be able to fix a rigged system by counting on the same people who have rigged it in the first place. The system, folks, is rigged. It's rigged by big donors. It's rigged by big businesses. It's rigged. The whole system is rigged. The economy is rigged. The banking system is rigged. There's a lot of things that are rigged. We have a rigged system, folks. He knows we're being ripped off, and I know we're being ripped off. We're being ripped off, big league, ripped off, ripped off. There's something going on with him that we don't know about.
Is there something going on that we all don't know about?
There's something going on that we don't know about.
We are led by very, very stupid people.
Somebody said, you shouldn't say stupid. It's not, but it's true. They're stupid. Stupid. Stupidity. Stupidity. And I'll tell you something. If I get the nomination, I'll win the Latino vote. Let me tell you something.
That's a terrible gesture.
Terrible. Terrible. That's terrible.
Terrible.
Terrible, terrible people.
Terrible. So terrible. I thought he was terrific. I think he's a terrific person.
Terrific person.
Terrific.
What you don't talk about is the thousands of people that I do hire. Thousands? I don't know how many, but many thousands.
Thousands?
Thousands and thousands, tens of thousands.
We're going to win so much. You're going to get tired of winning.
They may get tired of winning. You're going to get sick and tired of winning. They'll get tired of winning.
Libya is a total mess. Iraq is a total mess.
Total mess.
The guy's a total mess. I have a great company with tremendously talented people.
Tremendous cash flow. Tremendous net worth.
Tremendous understanding of this country.
Our message is unbelievable.
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 It's unbelievable.
Unbelievable. I don't believe this. This is unbelievable. Nobody believes it.
The press is so dishonest and so unfair.
I thought they were very unfair.
It's unfair.
Unfairly. I was very viciously attacked.
Viciously? Viciously.
And I said, wow, I can't believe it.
Wow. Wow.
And I said, wow.
And I've always said, wow.
Oh, wow.
I call it extreme vetting.
He referred to my hands. If they're small, something else must be small. I guarantee you there's no problem. I guarantee it.
You take a look at the salaries being paid. You take a look at what's going on at the colleges.
You just take a look at what's going on.
New Hampshire has a huge heroin problem.
I'm a huge Second Amendment person. I'm a huge believer in clean air. I'm not a huge believer in the global warming phenomenon.
Lindsey Graham, who's got zero. How do you get zero?
0%. How about the zeros? Zeros.
Zero. I don't know how you can get zero. Bush.
The two Matts, Negrin and Soto, put that masterpiece together. Yeah, Donnie Deutsch, so much.
Great.
What do you think of the way Trump talks?
But that's that man. You get to know. I think, believe it, that actually helps him with this. Look, he's a Queens guy. I'm a Queens guy. That's the way we talk. Hey, you choke artist. You're a choke artist, you know. So that takes him off the billionaire pedestal and puts him connecting to the man on the street. So we can laugh at it, but it's actually very effective.
And it's entertaining. All right. That took a long time, I hate to tell you. But I absolutely think we got them all in, believe me. We'll be right back with a final word from Donnie and from me. Big league, after this.
Having been here the last couple of weeks, I want to thank the great John Howman for letting me keep his seat warm while he's on vacation. This tremendous crew. And my
Thank you, man.
Mark Halpin.
Great to be with you. You're nice to sit in. Great fun. Bloomberg West is on your TV next. Thanks for watching. The program will be back tomorrow, same bad time, same bad channel. Sayonara.